to infinity and beyond.
It's Roger and James here from DisKingdom.com. In this episode, we're going to be talking about this kind of trend going on of there's like a big pushback going on lots of different Disney games, and not just Disney games, the whole games thing at the minute, of Battlefront kind of loot boxes. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but specifically like with the Disney Zone at the minute, obviously EA backed off a lot on Star Wars Battlefront. But recently, Marvel Future Fight started introducing loot boxes for some of the new characters, which completely the community just fell apart. There's been arguments, there's a boycott, there's some petitions. Even I've seen, I think Bill from Marvel Games has said we hear the things and we are working. So even like they've been aware of the situation. I posted a story recently about an update to the Pirates of the Caribbean Tide of War game, of which I was then made aware of by one of our readers, of a boycott going on there because that game, and I then went on the Reddit and the Facebook groups because it's not a game I've been playing because I didn't really like that one too much. There's massive issues going on there with pay to win. There's lots of the game developers are in the game with so much like powered up characters, they're just destroying everyone underneath. People are just, I mean, you look on the comments on the Facebook pages and people are just really not, and there's a boycott going on with that. It's not really a game I hear, it's definitely not so much on the radar, but, and then obviously there's also a lot of controversy that we talked about this week about Disney Magic Kingdoms with Grumpy and the way that that's going, and there's a lot of backlash to this. And it just feels like at this precise minute that there's like a feed across all of the games where, and I mean, we've had it with the Marvel Heroes stuff earlier this year, and I know some of the other games have been they've had this in the past, but it almost feels like it's reached boiling point this winter of loot boxes, and monetization has hit a point where every company's been pushed a little bit too hard, and everyone's actually gamers have started to go, no. And it's the fact that we've got like 4 or 5 different games even in the Disney sphere. Because I mean, I know Galaxy of Heroes, there were some other issues. Galaxy of Heroes, right. There was something else going on there with people complaining.
Yeah, but that was not loot boxes. I think that was something else. Sorry, I distracted you in the list there.
It's that kind of thing of just like there's this general theme of this this sort of. On one hand, you've got. I kind of moved Battlefront 2 into a different category because that was slightly different in the fact that people were paying for the game. And right. Whereas the free-to-play games, they have to make money somewhere, and it's been built around only 1% of the people pay. But I think they've been getting to that point where these companies are starting to go, no, we need more of that, so we're going to try and squeeze a lot more out and see what we can get away with. And it just feels like there's just been a massive... They got more aggressive. I mean, I don't know, like Avengers Academy, you know, I know you tend to play that one a bit, and that one's having an issue. But it definitely seems like this is the winter of discontent for microtransactions.
I mean, I think that even though Battlefront 2 is in a different category because you have to buy the game up front, and then you get the loot boxes, I think that was the tipping point where people were like, we're not going to tolerate loot boxes in Battlefront. We're not going to tolerate loot boxes in Shadow of War. We're not going to tolerate loot boxes in all these games. And then people are kind of going, well, why are we tolerating them in the free-to-play games as well? And yes, it's true. Free-to-play, they do need to make their money somewhere. But regular gamers are starting to go, there's no value proposition in the loot box. Gamers who would otherwise pay for an item directly are not willing to gamble or to take the chance on getting that item versus getting this other nonsense item that I don't need. It's like the treasure chests in Disney Magic Kingdom. I will never buy a treasure chest because, all right, yeah, I've got a 5% chance that I'll get the character, but I've got a 95% chance that I'm going to get a park bench. Yeah, I'm going to get a plant. I'm going to get a park bench. It's like, why would I possibly spend that money? And I think, yes, you're always going to have whales. You're always going to have people like, well, $1,000, that's nothing. I'm just going to throw that at this game right now. But people aren't willing to put up with this predatory practice anymore.
No, it's a very different. I know, like with Future Fight, one of the big problems with that was that game hadn't had loot boxes. You were able to buy the characters you wanted. It's one of the reasons I didn't really... Contest of Champions is an issue of with that game. I never liked how I couldn't get hold of the characters that were brand new or the one I wanted. I had to go through this loot box situation, and I didn't like it, so I didn't really tend to play that side of things to it. But they introduced it to Future Fight, and the reaction was very much along as and it was that thing of, you've introduced loot boxes the worst week you possibly could. It's like, this is the worst time to introduce... It's not like it was a brand new game, you know, like we've got Strike Force or something like that coming, and it's there from day one. It's like, you picked the month when this was the worst timing available you could have done.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, obviously, it's not like they just flipped the switch. They've been working on it for a while on the development side, and it just happened to coincide with the Battlefront 2 controversy. So, yeah, terrible timing, but, oh, man, this was coming. This has always been coming. And I think even the publishers and the developers knew that this was going to have a shelf life. I think they expected it to last a little bit longer, and it will. It's still going to continue on into the future because games that are in development now aren't going to be able to change the way they do things, and there will always be some form of loot boxes, but we're going to see changes in how it's done, and hopefully those changes will be pro-consumer, but I'm not counting on it.
No.
I'm actually at the point, I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, I'm at the point now where the only games on my phones right now are ones that we're going to talk about on this podcast. I'm only playing them so that I can talk about them with at least a certain amount of knowledge. Yeah. Every other game, with the exception of Disney Emoji Blitz, because that's a game that I can just kind of play two quick ones. I'm standing in line, I can play a thing. I ignore the events completely at this point. So that's the one exception. But all the Marvel games, all the Star Wars games, all the DC comic games, all the, anything that looks remotely interesting to me, I look at it and go, no, I'm not going to get invested in this game because at some point, faster than you expect it to happen, you are either going to be a whale or you're going to be utterly left behind.
Yeah, or they just shut the game down.
Or they shut the game down. I mean...
Yeah.
How many games did Disney announce they were shutting down?
We
talked about it last week.
Yeah, well, I know that. I did up a story. There was like 20, 30 apps. The trouble is, well, a lot of these apps is they're sitting, they develop them and they sit there for 4 or 5 years, and then suddenly they've got to keep updating them for the new iOS, and then they ended up it's just not worth the money, so they are dropping them off. But we know like Marvel Heroes Omega. Developers were very, very much talking about how loot boxes were making them much more money than being able to buy them per. But then that didn't work either.
No, that didn't work. But I mean,
there's that thing of it might be getting more money from a customer, but you're driving more customers away, and it's that it's that kind of situation of sometimes like they're seeing an increased volume of traffic coming in, but they're not seeing the untold damage of how many people are going, no, I'm not buying them.
See, that is the side of the equation that I think the publishers or the people who are setting the prices really need to start taking into account. Yes, you can get more money from a smaller player base but with the loot boxes, because you'll have the whales who will just spend thousands of dollars to get that one item that they want. The problem is a whale isn't going to have any incentive to spend money on a game where there's no one else playing it.
No.
So if I'm not playing the game because I don't want to deal with the loot boxes, then eventually the whales aren't going to have anyone to play against, and they're not going to spend the money either, and then the game is gone.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier this week, and they were talking about how like that element of mobile games, 99% of them don't pay any money. Only 1% or 2% do. The thing is, they have to go in and they design these games around that, and some of the developers view it more like, well, the whales keep everything else. It's a bit like how in the old times of the rich paid for art and everybody else got to enjoy them, and it was kind of, the rich paid for all the game, and so the little kid can play the game because the lawyer is paying £1,000 to buy all the gems. However, I think that model has shifted where they're pushing this kind of thing, and I think the whole thing of the loop. I think the problems are going to come in. It's this government regulation that if these companies don't get on top of this soon, government agencies are going to start enforcing some stuff, and then you're going to start having problems of. You do not want the government involved in video games. We do not want them setting out. It might get rid of it might get rid of loot boxes, but there'll be another. They'll wiggle around it some other way.
Oh yeah, I mean we don't know what it is yet. No. But loot boxes are going to be replaced by something just as bad, and then we'll have this keep on. Yeah. The cycle will continue.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of this thing. It just feels like at this precise minute where there is a massive, just underwhelming, or just this overwhelming kind of grumpy, and not really grumpiness, but just people are just getting gnarly about this type of thing, and I'm seeing it in so many different games, and so many of these people are completely unaware of what's going on in other games. This situation in Contest of Champions, or in Future Fight,
Marvel Future Fight,
yeah, they probably are blissfully unaware that something's happening over here in Magic Kingdoms and something else is happening in Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's that thing of everyone's like scratching back, and I'm sure that if we looked into it a lot more on other mobile games outside of the Disney sphere, there's probably happening a lot everywhere else, because there is just a big backlash against this kind of content, and they've got to work out a way of doing it. Maybe they need to start just, maybe that thing of they just need to start rolling ads during the game. Go, yeah, you want to complete this quest? Well, you now need to watch an advert for 30 seconds because you won't pay any money, but we need to get some money. They've got to work on ways, there is a banner inside the game, or, Disney Magic Kingdoms, they have a big sign on each thing of this game is, this attraction is sponsored by, Disney can't even do that anymore themselves for the real thing, but they've got to work a way of funding these games. Alternatively, they've got to start charging for games. And mobile gamers, they're in a weird thing where they don't like paying for games.
Oh yeah, I know. It's really weird, and I definitely have felt it myself too. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to spend $5 on this game, and then I'll turn around and be like, oh yeah, hey look, it's Doc or yeah. Dopey, and oh yeah, that's only $4. Whatever, yeah. Sure, and I'm completely aware of that, but it doesn't change that like, oh, I don't want to spend $5 on the game, but I'll spend $4 on a single DLC character in Magic Kingdoms or Galaxy of Heroes or something like that, and it's like. It's something up here, and the publishers are completely aware of that. The publishers know the psychology.
There's this kind of weird thing of like gamer entitlement, and everybody wants everything for free, and everything wants it cheap, and unfortunately, game development has gone up, and things have changed, and they need to push prices up. We've been saying that for a while. Video games need to be more pricey. They have never been more cheaper than they are right now, but they've got to work out this line.
I've thought about this. You've mentioned it plenty of times before. The thing is, if they raise the price, let's say they raise the base price of games from $60 to $70, they're not going to reduce the prices of season passes. They're not going to reduce the prices of loot boxes. Ideally, maybe raising the price to $70 and then saying, all right, no more season pass. You're getting all the content up front, and you're paying just a little bit more up front, but you're getting it. But that's not what's going to happen. No. And they would have done it by now. Yeah. Because these guys are not stupid. They know the marketing data. If they could get away with charging $70 instead of $60, and they would make more money than they're making now versus season passes or continuous DLC, they would have done it.
The only thing that I say about also with games being cheaper is if you take the look at, so for example, Gamer Pass, PS Plus, games with gold. You've also got, PS Now. You've got those things which are offering so many games for barely any pence. The fact that video game prices generally tumble just week on week. You can go out now and pick up Doom or, a game from 6 months ago for like $9.99 or 20 quid, except for Nintendo. Nintendo's still got this, and it's like, you're sort of thinking, Breath of the Wild is still full price. Because they put value on that game that is not something they want to flog off cheap. And the trouble is, all the developers are all like trying to get one up and trying to get the money in to try and get it in because the game dies as the game moves on. But it's that situation of players have got used to this concept that everything just gets cheap to free eventually. If you're willing to hold out time, most games will become available to play for next to nothing. And while that's always been the case, you don't tend to say that for about like other things like books and movies and music where it all comes down to being, if you wait 4 or 5 years, you might see it on TV for free. But
I've got to disagree with that, because I definitely know people who will be, and including myself, will be, I'm not buying a DVD the week it comes out because I know I'll be able to get that DVD for $10 in a month and a half from now. I think, actually, if we're talking about media, if we're talking about consumable media, music, TV, video games, movies, etc., you have the early adopters, the people who buy it the week it comes out, which is great. I definitely do that with some games, and I'll do it with books. Books are another one, though. It just takes a different form where you go from the hardcover to the mass market paperback. If you're willing to wait several months, you can pay $18 now for the hardcover, or you can pay $7 for the little soft paperback later. All forms of media are like this right now. And that's not... the base price, you might lose a couple of people, but most gamers are still going to be like, all right, fine, screw it, I'll pay $70. But I'll tell you right now, I don't own Breath of the Wild. I don't own Mario Odyssey. I don't own any of these major first-party Switch games. I would buy them for half the price they are now. I don't see a $60 proposition. I know I'm going to get all sorts of crap for that, because Breath of the Wild Game of the Year, I don't care. It's not a $60 game to me. No, but the thing is that situation, that's what the trouble is that situation, isn't it, where the games have to be that price to cover the costs, and the run to the bottom of the price does cause problems, and unfortunately all the developers have to make money, and there's this line of where what's better, is it better that a game comes out and it's full price like Mario Odyssey and stays at that price for 2, 3, 4 years, but doesn't include any season passes, doesn't include any microtransactions. In the but people's psyches change, and this is where I think this whole thing of this grumbling going on with microtransactions and stuff is. It's just that thing of people spending money. They generally don't want to do it. They want everything. But at the same time, they're getting pushed in different ways, and as the value in cash comes down to what they feel. If they don't feel like you're getting enough value for the money, that's when it starts going wrong. The other thing, though, is that it's not the consumer's responsibility to keep these companies afloat. No. If they don't give us the value proposition, whether that's at $60 or $70 or $20, if they don't give us the value, that's on them. That's not on us, and it's not our responsibility. Whether it's a free-to-play game, I don't have to buy loot boxes. It's not a requirement. I will generally if I like the game because I want the developers to, but it's... And at the end of the day, consumers will pay what consumers play. Exactly. Some will pay $100 for a game, and that's cool. If there are enough of those to make the $100 development worthwhile, then awesome. Go for it, developers. If there are not, then you have no one to blame but yourself if it's a bomb. Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting time with what's going on, but we'd love to know your thoughts on all of this kind of stuff, so get in touch with us, comment below or on social media. You can also hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. You can also hit the subscribe button if you are on the audio platforms, and feel free to leave us a like or review on any of those as well. James, where can they find you? Find me heroiclegacy.com. And on that, guys, check us out over at DisKingdom.com, and we will see you guys soon. Later.